Gaza and the Middle East is on the edge of a precipice of unimaginable evil and total carnage and chaos in the world. In Gaza, that evil hoved back into view. In 51 minutes last week, 300 children were killed. Almost 1,000 have been murdered in the last 6 days, and 70% of those were women and children. It's the same old story, but with increased ferocity and savagery. NGOs and other international workers have been warned by Netanyahu to leave the Gaza Strip in the next 48 hours. So only God knows at this point in time what greater evil they have planned. But it's not only in Gaza. 2 American aircraft carriers have now sailed into the Persian Gulf. Yemen is being bombed relentlessly and civilians massacred in their homes in the middle of the night by not just American bombers, but British bombers too. The sense of impending disaster is now spreading everywhere in the Middle East. The neighbors who host American bases and who supply the airways and the waterways for American and even Israeli attacks against Iran are beginning to realize they themselves are looking down the barrel of a gun. Yemen fired a retaliatory rocket against Tel Aviv to try and take the pressure off the people being murdered in Gaza. Guess who shot it down? Yes, the Arab monarchy in Jordan. We're talking about Gaza, the Middle East, on edge. You've come to the right place. This is Have It Out with Galloway. Dr. Shivan Mahendrarajah was educated at Columbia University in New York and Cambridge in England. He's the author of books on Iran and Afghanistan and articles on Islamic history, art, architecture, Sufism, Islam, Mongol studies, Iranian studies, and presciently military affairs. And I'm glad to say he joins us again here on Have It Out with Galloway. Doctor, thank you for joining us. Was I being too apocalyptic in the situation I described in my opening remarks?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me and for your kind words. I wouldn't say you're being too apocalyptic. I think this war with Iran has been planned and in the works for many years. Now, as I'm sure you know, the mantra was always Iraq first and Iran next. This was signaled with the State of the Union speech by Bush on 29th of January 2002. So for 23 years and 2 months, the Iranians have known that this war is coming. And the Israelis have a very pliant president in the White House who will help them do what they want. So I suspect this war is coming, and it will be catastrophic for the global economy, as well as for the region, for Iran, for Arab states. We'll see how it unfolds, though.
Well, given the catastrophic consequences of such a war, as you implied, and as others like Dr. Mohammed Marandi have recently adumbrated on my shows, it's hard to believe that they will willingly go into that good night. It might be a final and permanent good night for America's closest allies in the Persian Gulf, but it would be, of course, good night for the international economy. The Straits of Hormuz, 40% of the world's petroleum passes through them. the petrol and gas facilities of all of Iran's neighbors would surely be destroyed in such a war. No factory will operate, no wheel will turn if this catastrophe unfolds. Not to mention what the military costs to the belligerents would be.
Yes. Excuse me, I'm kind of getting over a cold here. I think, Dmitry Medvedev, the former president of Russia, he did a tweet about July of last year where he said that war is coming in the Middle East, but it would, that'd be a good thing in the sense that it'll lead to a shaky peace. I don't know exactly what he was talking about. I kind of agree with the sentiments in the sense that Iran, for example, cannot continue to be under threat like this year after year and under sanctions, and the whole Middle East just cannot be like this, where Yemen is constantly attacked, or Lebanon is bombed, or this Gaza business going on nonstop. So this has to come to a head at some point. Now, I look at it somewhat in a contrarian point of view, which is that Iran has been cut off from the global economy. It been sanctioned for decades, and it can win this war by not losing. It can win by causing great harm to the US military assets in the region as well as to Israel. But it doesn't necessarily have to destroy each and every um, uh, oil facility of its neighbors to do so, in the sense is if they bring about enough damage and raise oil prices to a certain level, they can actually hurt their enemies more than they will be hurting their allies. I'll explain. Oil prices go up. Of course, the poorer countries of the world, the global south, they suffer, uh, meaning Africa, Latin America, Asia, paying higher oil prices. But the countries that have the most to lose are the European Union, the United Kingdom, USA, and Canada, where high oil prices will lead to stock market crashes, bankruptcies, layoffs. And so the economic harm will be actually greater for Iran's enemies. And that will cause them to want to bring the war to a conclusion, a lot sooner than Trump or Netanyahu would want it to. So there will be pressure from those sides, because Europe, for example, right now, they are basically on life support after having shot themselves in the head with sanctions on Russia. So all it takes for European Union's economy and also the United Kingdom to really go into a deep recession would be high oil prices, unemployment, drop in consumer spending, layoffs, as well as bankruptcies because people can't pay their credit card bills, for instance, or auto loans, home loans. So that would be worse for them. And I think if Iran looks at it, they might say, we don't really want to do this, and we don't want to blow up the United Arab Emirates or Bahrain or Kuwait or any of these things, but we can do certain things in order to bring the pressure onto our enemies and to have them stop this war and sue for peace. So we can look at it in different ways on how they can do it.
That's a fascinating set of hypotheticals, I must say, Doctor. You did see, I'm sure, the extraordinary situation where a journalist, an Israeli-American journalist at that, former IDF soldier and prison guard, a Mr. Goldberg of The Atlantic magazine, was copied in fact, he was included in a WhatsApp group in which all of the leading figures in the Trump administration openly discussed their war plan for Yemen. And no one is denying the accuracy of the reportage, though some are puzzled as to how a journalist could end up in that WhatsApp group. Maybe that's another matter. But one of the things that was obvious from the WhatsApp group was that they are attacking Yemen as a substitute for attacking Iran. A kind of reverse proxy war. They're attacking Yemen because it's poor and because its ability to defend itself is by many orders of magnitude less than Iran's. Might they stop there, concentrate on killing Yemenis as a substitute for killing Iranians who might kill a lot of them back?
I'm not really sure what that is about in the sense, but what I would say is this Jeffrey Goldberg being included in this, it was no accident, it was no leak, this was deliberate. The reason is that there is a lot of opposition in the United States among American conservatives as well to further involvement, military involvement by the United States in the Middle East. And you know, Trump, a lot of people voted for Trump because he was saying, oh, I'm the peace president. There won't be any more wars. There'll end the war in the Ukraine, blah, blah, blah. So what these guys are trying to do with this is basically to shift the focus of their assault attacks on Yemen onto the European Union. If you read some of these texts, they're talking about, we are doing this for the European Union. I hope they're grateful. I hope they, repay us. But it's really not for the European Union that they're doing this. They're doing this for Israel, but they can't really say that. So this is really a way of shifting the blame for what they're doing onto the European Union. But will it stop there? I don't know, because Netanyahu and most radical people on his side and the people who have contributed so much money to Trump's campaign, not just this campaign, but even the one before. If you think of the Adelson family, the husband gave $100 million for his first campaign. He died. Wife gave another $100 million. These guys didn't exactly pay for $200 million plus all the other tens of millions that have been paid to the Trump campaign just for them to bomb Yemen or to allow them just to bomb Gaza, which they could do for free anyway, right? Biden would have allowed them to do the same thing. So they're paying for Iran war, and I think the Iran war is what they want and what they're going to get, because they feel is, we've waited all this time and we've had Obama for 8 years and we had Trump, we couldn't get anything. We had Biden, we couldn't get exactly what we wanted, but we now have Trump and we are going to get our war. So I think they will definitely try to get their Iran war. And I don't think they will stop at Yemen.
Let's switch to the Israel-Gaza front. There was a 2-month ceasefire. Trump put his name on it, but he was consulted in advance at the unilateral breach of that ceasefire by Netanyahu and the resulting savagery, which I tried to enumerate in my opening remarks. Truly extraordinary. As Haaretz, the Israeli newspaper, pointed out, this is the highest kill rate for children in recorded history. 300 children in 51 minutes is a record even by Israel's standards. What's their game? I mean, I always say Israel cannot re-inherit the Gaza Strip unless it were to kill every Palestinian, 2 million of them, and they won't be able to do that. I'm wondering if they won't be able to do that. Do they intend to do that?
Well, I think they're going to try, but at the same time, I think there's also this situation here right now where Netanyahu has to kind of keep the war going on for as long as he can in order to stay in office. Now, you notice that as soon as he broke the ceasefire, the protests against him have picked up again. And there's a lot of internal stuff going on, as you are aware, where he's trying to fire the head of the internal intelligence service, but the courts are blocking him. And there's a great deal of unrest within his own government. So some of this, what he's doing in Gaza, is also a way of deflecting attention away from these other matters that are going on, and also to kind of keep him in power for as long as he possibly can, because he still has a court date for his crimes, well, his crimes inside of Israel against Israel, not against his crimes against the Palestinians. So I think some of this is being driven there in that direction, but some of it is also, I think, Israelis are just simply doing what they, you know, constantly keep doing when they don't know what they want to do. Just bomb somebody. Whether it's attacking Syria or Yemen, or they have also struck in Iraq last year, I think it was, and Lebanon. It's just their way of doing things. It's just go bomb somebody.
Scorpions sting because they're scorpions. Finally, Doctor, the European Union is discussed almost contemptuously in this WhatsApp group by the top Americans. And one wonders if this is not partly about the extent to which the European Union and the UK, which might as well be back in the European Union because its foreign policy is indistinguishable from the French and the Germans and the other lesser powers in the European Union. The European Union governments, however, are all committed ad nauseum for 30 years to a two-state solution. Indeed, some of them still have the gall to utter that mantra whilst watching and in some cases facilitating the destruction of any possibility of a two-state solution. How do they square that, or have they given up trying to be intellectually coherent?
I think they've given up on that. I mean, maybe Norway, I think, might be an exception to that, but Germany, France, UK, yes. This business about contempt in the messages, I must say, again, excuse me, is that this is actually a sentiment that is fairly common among Americans, both Democrats and Republicans, particularly over the last couple of decades of being contemptuous. And the reason that contempt is there is because they don't really see some of these European countries as independent states. They're just vassals who have no foreign policy of their own, no backbone of their own. And so Americans have this way of looking at them as just the way someone might talk to a servant. And that's what you see in those messages. And you see a lot of it. I mean, we know the famous phone call from Victoria Nuland. I can't quote it, but it says, so-and-so the European Union. Yes. That is exactly how a lot of people think in the US government and in society. And that is because they no longer see Europe as having leaders that they can look up to and respect. Now, you're not going to like this necessarily, but I mean, I grew up with the Republican Party of Ronald Reagan, and I know how Americans looked upon Maggie Thatcher, for example. I mean, there was great deal of respect. There was never going to be a situation where you would say, to hell with the British, to hell with Thatcher. But they will say that today, like, jokes about Starmer. I think you came up with a great term for him, wasn't it? Pound shop Churchill? Yeah. I mean, absolutely. But we would never have said that about Margaret Thatcher or Helmut Kohl or even Francois Mitterrand. I mean, we had disagreements with, Reagan had a great number of disagreements with Mitterrand, but, there was respect there. But you don't have that now. That is why you're seeing, because these are countries that will talk a good game, but they're useless. I mean, Starmer, for example, was talking about sending troops to the Ukraine's peacekeeping forces. And people like me were laughing at this. I mean, the British military being what it is, you can't fight the Girl Scouts. And you want to send them as peacekeepers. And then I think some British military people were quoted in the Daily Telegraph as saying he's just posturing because this is not a workable situation. And that's true. And these all breed contempt is because we all know it's posturing, that there's no way Macron is going to send French troops in there because he knows he can't do it, or Starmer send British troops. It's just posturing. And so when you see people who act like this and talk like this, of course, the American politicians are going to be like, wait, you need us to fight your wars. And Trump actually said that to Starmer when he was in the White House media. I don't know if you remember it.
Yeah.
Starmer was going on about something and about Russia, and Trump just said to him, "But you can't fight them without us, right?" That's exactly right.
We're still
And
waiting
Trump
for an
and some
answer.
of these people are actually saying these things in public.
Perhaps the
Sorry.
contempt is richly deserved. Dr. Shivan, it's always an education to talk with you. Thank you so much for joining us on Have It Out with Galloway. Let's go to Gaza for an update from Gaza from Mohammed Al Farah. Mohammed, go ahead.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I do respect that, actually, brother. So the situation in Gaza remains dire, and though we have seen some brief pauses in violence, the reality is far from over. While the news may focus on a temporary ceasefires, the people of Gaza continue to face unimaginable hardships. It's really important to understand that while we may hear about moments of calm, what is happening on the ground is a constant struggle for survival. Just recently, we tried to rebuild. Families who had lost everything, homes reduced to rubble, started picking up the pieces of their lives once again. But like so many times before, the war returned, the violence returned to destroy what little we had left. The airstrike voice, the airstrike sounds still echo through our streets, and war plans still hover above us, reminding us that peace is just a dream and hope is fleeting. The conditions here are really bad. Imagine just for a moment no electricity, no clean water, no food, no safe place for your children to sleep. Imagine living in a place where every moment feels like it's gonna be the last. This is the reality for the people of Gaza today. We are in a constant state of fear, and yet no one seems to hear our crisis. The people here are heartbroken. They have lost so much loved ones, homes, entire neighborhoods, and yet they keep fighting to survive. This is not a tragedy. This is a genocide that is being ignored by the world. Sadly, the world watches from the sidelines with little action. The international community, as usual, turns a blind eye to the suffering of Gaza's children, women, and old men. We are seeing entire generations being wiped out silently. Our people are being eliminated, not through headlines, but through the devastating lack of attention to our humanity. This needs to be changed as soon as possible. Do you really know? Do you want to know the updates about the recent news of the returning to the genocide in Gaza? This is what I have here. This is Nasser Medical Complex. It's the only and the main hospital in Khan Yunis in southern of Gaza Strip. This hospital was bombed 2 days ago by the Israel airstrikes. Can you imagine it? This is a hospital. Just please look at me. Imagine for a second that you were sitting in a place having your healthcare, getting your healthcare, and you think that you are sitting in a place that you think it's the safest place ever, and suddenly you got pumped for no reason. You got pumped in a hospital, inside of a hospital. This is shame, isn't it? You can just imagine it. Imagine that you're in the hospital getting just your health care. Okay, this is just shame. You know, there's something is killing us more than getting the hospital bumped. It's the silence. You know, the world silence is it's really gonna kill us. Yesterday, they have targeted a journalist. I think the day before yesterday. So the total is around 200 journalists were killed during the genocide. From the beginning of the genocide since 2023 until now, 200 journalists. So Why? There is no reason. It's just because they are trying to share and to show the truth. This is what I'm doing right now. I am sharing the truth. I am saying the truth. I'm trying to show the people what is the Israeli crimes looks like. I am putting myself in danger. I am putting my family in danger. I am putting my friends in danger just to show the people the genocide and how it looks like. And now nothing happens. The people are still silent. Nobody is moving and nobody is making anything. I can just say the silence is really loud. The silence is really loud. That's all I'm going to say. At the end of the day, Gaza is not a statistic. We are not invisible. These are real lives, real families, real children who deserve a future. So I need everyone watching today to imagine the pain, the devastation, and the struggle we are living with every single day. The world cannot remain silent. We need the global community to speak out, to act, and to help us rebuild not just our homes, but our dignity. Thank you for giving me this platform to share the truth about what's happening in Gaza these days. I hope that through continued awareness and action, we can bring an end to this suffering, to this genocide. The people of Gaza deserve peace, they deserve justice, and they deserve to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm almost speechless at that testimony. I think it's probably best to let your words hang in the air and hope that they affect everyone as much as they have affected me. Let's go to London next, South London. Sukana Rajwani in South London, welcome. Madam, what would you like to say?
Hi, George. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak and for having me on your show today. I'd actually like to share my daughter Fatima Zainab's story with all the viewers today. So Fatima Zainab is a 20-year-old young lady. She's just as girls her age are. She loves spending time with friends and family. She loves reading, writing, and she would have been graduating this year with media and film studies if she was not in prison. So since 6th of August 2024, last year, coming to 8 months now, Fatima Zainab has been in prison. She is actually one of Palestine Action's political prisoners on remand. And this is in connection with a direct action against Elbit, which is an Israel arms manufacturer. Along with 17 other people, 17 other activists, she is allegedly accused of causing damage to weapons, which include quadcopter drones used in the Gaza genocide. Elbit Systems makes 85% of the drones bombing Gaza. It is UK's innovation and manufacturing hub and a key component of the slaughter of the Palestinians, as we have heard from Gaza, from Muhammad al-Farah, right now, 70% of whom are women and children. So with my daughter's situation, in a flagrant abuse of counter-terror powers by the British state, Fatima Zainab and the rest of the Filton were held in communicado and in solitary confinement and interrogated constantly for a week without charge following their arrest. They have now been subsequently charged, but not with any terror offenses. However, the counter-terror police still leads to prosecute and lead the investigation. Their charges have a terror connection. And because of all of this, they have faced repressive conditions in prison. They have been denied bail. We have seen the most worst of criminals getting bail, but here my daughter and her fellow co-defendants trying to end a genocide, trying to stop arms supply to Israel have been denied bail. And it's just very disturbing to see the state of the justice system in Britain at this point.
Disturbing indeed. I can't, for legal reasons, comment on a live case, but we do clearly live in a country where the criminals send those who oppose their crimes to prison. And it's not that any English jury has as yet convicted any of the accused activists who argue that they're doing their legal duty. It's their legal duty to stop a genocide. That much is clear. And as recently as last year in the judgments of the International Court of Justice, it's a legal obligation on every citizen to try to stop a genocide. And no jury has convicted a single person for trying to do so, because juries are made up of ordinary men and women with hearts and with minds. So what they do is they keep the accused on remand for as long as is possible, in as bad conditions as possible, and if possible, for good. The truth is that history will remember all those who stood up against the genocide, and they will remember with hatred and contempt all those who facilitated it. Thank you, ma'am, for that call. Syed Zain Abbas Zaidi is in Islamabad, Pakistan. Syed, welcome to the show. What would you like to say?
Thank you very much, George, for this great opportunity. May God bless everyone who is standing with the humanity and spreading the voice of the people who are tyrannized and colonized by the world's powers. First of all, I want to grab this opportunity to highlight the issue of Palachana in Pakistan. This is the similarly case of captivity, and the area is besieged with 1 million people, and it's bordering Afghanistan, so it's very strategic location, and we are facing very harsh life conditions there. It's like a mini Gaza there. I wish we can raise enough voice so that the issue can be highlighted, and the government have to take action against the terrorists who are captivating the 1 million people. Besides this, on the most important topic of Gaza, may Allah bless you for raising continuous voice for this burning issue. How do you liberate the issue, the role of UN? Just to put it in the context, like this during the freedom struggle of South Africa, it was the same settler colonial project of the South Africa, but we have seen the boycott proposed by the UN, supported by the UN. But in this context, we have seen a totally blind eye from the UN, and interestingly, the US government has used the same platform to bomb Iraq and to attack other nations. And now the oligarchs in US are claiming that US should leave UN and NATO. I mean, just used like a tissue paper or what? How do you comment it?
Well, not only are there no boycotts by any state, and many states have made it illegal to campaign for a boycott. Imagine, you're not allowed to convey to another that they should not purchase the goods coming from a given country for a set of moral and political reasons. You're committing a crime. In, I think, 20 or 30 of the states of the United States of America, it is a crime for which you can go to prison for seeking to persuade people to boycott the Netanyahu gangster state. And we're not that much further away from that here in the United Kingdom. So not only are there no boycotts, it is in many places illegal to call for a boycott. And this very weekend past, Israel was playing in the World Cup football qualifying championships. South Africa was for decades unable to participate in cricket, in rugby, because it was impossible for right-thinking people, decent people, to rub shoulders with them during the apartheid era. sportsmen would refuse to do it. The fans would refuse to accept it, and the pressure on Western governments to shun South Africa became, in the end, unbearable, and they had to accede to it. But we're so far away from being able to say that about the settler state of Israel that actually the criminals are us who are trying to highlight their crimes. Imagine. Let's go to another English city, Birmingham, where Zubair Rashid wants to contribute. Zubair, welcome. What would you like to say, my friend?
George, thank you very much. Thanks for your contribution for this show. My question is that to you, why Israel do not feel any pressure? Is this a Trump factor? Is this the Western double standard? Or is this the Arab betrayal? Or what Palestinian can do? What strategy you would advise to Palestinian given this miserable situation they are in today? What would you advise to them, George?
Well, I wouldn't be giving advice. When I'm in solidarity with people, I'm in solidarity with what they decide. I'm not Bwana, the colonial governor. They must decide their own strategy and tactics, and it's my job to stand with them, and I always have and always will. The reasons why the Western governments are so enthralled to the Netanyahu state is very difficult for me to answer. It's certainly not in the interests of Britain to be the indissoluble, inseparable ally of a country committing genocide. And I don't just mean our material interest, but if I concentrate for a minute on our material interest, allow me to do so. How do we gain anything from being so inseparable with a tiny country of 7 million people that is at war with all of its neighbors? How? How does that put a potato on anybody's plate in Birmingham? How does that employ anybody in the West Midlands? How does it profit us to have lost our soul? I mean, we didn't gain the whole world by losing our soul. To paraphrase the blessed Matthew, we inherited nothing and sold our soul. And it's impossible to fully understand that. Of course, in America in particular, cash is the king and is a principal reason. Virtually all American politicians are recipients of almost unlimited sums of money to pay for their political campaigns and the wonderful lives that they live. You can't even really say that in Britain because our campaign finance laws are such that you can only spend about £20,000 per constituency in an election, and you can raise that by going door to door with a cap. So we can't even explain it in Britain by corruption of the political process from cash. Compromat is another area that we might look at. The whole Epstein operation was about gathering compromising material on political figures, journalistic figures, legal figures, lure them into their dirty, degenerate deeds, film them doing so, and then you have a friend for life. And that was what Epstein and Maxwell were doing. And by the way, it's high time we knew who they were doing it to. Syed Najam Shah is also in England, but this time in Lancashire. Syed, welcome. What do you want to say?
Hello, George. Great to see you again. Thank you for the invite. I'm a proud member of Palestine Action. Myself and 3 comrades, we dismantled a war factory supplying Israel last year. And like you said, my friend, we went on trial and they couldn't convict us because we explained that our actions are in line with democracy and the law. So because they can't convict us, they're now using what I call bogus terrorist charges. Not charges, sorry, terrorist links and allegations. So I'm here to speak for the Filter 8 team. Thank you, Sakina. Great to see you earlier on. We've got a huge petition. We've got 50,000 signatures. Please help us get to 100,000 signatures. To find it, just Google Free the Filter 18. There's a serious abuse of the terrorist sort of police authorities. It could be our children next. It's not on. You know, if the coppers want to take us on, come on, be fair, guys, like you were with us, and that we win. Now, there's a huge hearing on Thursday, guys. If you're in London, it's at the Old Bailey at 9 a.m. These guys are only kids. They're only young kids. They've been really abused by the system. They were dragged out of their beds in their boxer shorts by the terrorist police, made to freeze on the lawn, a 17-year-old boy. 4 hours, they made him stand there. Same for a elderly, lovely British lady. She's 77 years old. She had to wait on the lawn for 4 hours while the police ransacked her house. This is out of order. The treatment of our Filter 18 comrades has been so bad. We now have 4 UN rapporteurs, special rapporteurs, the experts and monitors and senior directors of the human rights departments of the UN questioning the British justice system. They're saying, why have you put suspected T-links? The charges are minor, just criminal damage and trespass, the most minor of charges, but they've been held in jail without trial indefinitely just because the police have used the words suspected, terror link. As a British Muslim, honestly, I'm sick of those guys being called the terrorists. We're not. We're in line with the law. Please, even the UN rapporteurs are on our side. They've been questioning the British justice system. They've asked, why have these great kids, the Filton 18, been suspected of terrorism when it was a non-violent act? Why are the police using draconian tactics on them inside jails, stopping their contact? One of our comrades is on a 300-calorie-a-day diet. I believe that's because the British police are being trained by the IDF. Shame on you for that. Guys, join us. We've got the UN with us. We've got all the ethics, humanity on our side. We are all Palestine Action. Please come to the hearing on Thursday, 9 a.m. If you're not near London, just share it with someone. It's your support. It's so
Said, I'm not sure that the British need any training from the IDF. They are the experts over centuries of how they deal with those who stand against their crimes. There is undoubtedly a case to be made that there is a now systematic abuse of the anti-terrorism powers and laws and processes that is now beginning to itself produce a reign of terror in the United Kingdom. Some of my best friends have been huckled at the airports of Britain under anti-terrorism laws, and they include such dangerous figures as the near 70-year-old former ambassador Craig Murray, former British ambassador, arrested on terrorism charges, or young Richard Medhurst, not only arrested under terrorism charges in the United Kingdom, but similarly treated in the same way, if not worse, in Austria, where it's a crime to stand up for the Palestinian children being massacred that we've been talking about on this show today. Now, I sat in Parliament for many long hours opposing the terrorism legislation that we have today. I think almost, if not all of it, was passed during the time that I was a Member of Parliament. And though I opposed the legislation, I insist, and I hope the police are listening, I insist that it was never the intention of the legislators who drew up that legislation for it to be used against kids and 77-year-old women who have done nothing more, if they have done nothing more than trespass and criminal damage against weapons factories that are supplying weapons that are massacring children in Gaza. That's not terrorism. Dennis Ballantyne is in New York. Let's hear from Dennis. Go ahead, Dennis.
I'm going to not change the subject, but take a little bit of a different tact here. I am concerned about the continuing expression of disbelief at the situation in Gaza. This is a specific reference to Gaza, but in a larger sense as well, by almost all of the commentators in the alternative media that I hear who express their continual disbelief at why, for example, the Arab world is as inaction, so much inaction and apathy in the world toward what's going on in Gaza. So I heard an interview recently by a professor, Dr. Michael Brenner, who expressed the sentiment that I experienced as being very, very valuable and extremely important. So I'd like to refer to some notes that I have of that.
Unfortunately, we don't have time for that, but I'm going to infer what it is that you are saying. You may be older, you may be wiser than the rest of us, but I continue to be human enough to be astounded, astonished, and yes, in disbelief that killing of children on this scale can not only happen in Gaza, but can be met with stony silence and inaction by all the powers who are never done telling us just how in love with democracy and human rights they all are. Sorry, Dennis, you spoke too long. However wise you were, we just ran out of time. And I'm glad that you were here to share this show with me. Have it out with Galloway. Thanks for watching.